Imagine a neighbor, someone you see every day. They greet you with a warm smile, offer you a helping hand, maybe even invite you over for a meal. You trust them. They're part of the community, a familiar, friendly face. Now, what if that same person, the one you trusted without a second thought, was hiding a secret so monstrous it defies belief? What if their kindness was just a mask, concealing a predator of the most terrifying kind? This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It's the true, bone-chilling story of Karl Denke, a man who turned hospitality into a trap and his home into a house of horrors. Our story takes us back to the early 20th century, to the town of Münsterberg, Germany, which is now Zeebus in Poland. Here lived Karl Denke, known to his neighbors as Papa Denke. He was a seemingly ordinary, if a bit eccentric, man. He was known for his generosity, often helping the poor and transient, offering them food and a place to stay. In a time of economic hardship following World War I, his acts of charity made him a respected figure in the community. People saw him as a kind-hearted soul, a pillar of decency. He sold pork products at the local market, and people bought them, never questioning their origin. After all, it was just Papa Denke, the friendly butcher. But behind the facade of this benevolent old man lurked a darkness that no one could have ever imagined. The first whispers of something being wrong were subtle, easily dismissed. People started to notice that many of the vagrants and travelers who accepted Denke's hospitality were never seen again. A beggar would be seen entering his house one day, and then, nothing. They would simply vanish. In a town where people knew each other, these disappearances were strange, but who would suspect Papa Denke? He was the one helping these people, wasn't he? Perhaps they had simply moved on, found work in another town, or continued their journey. It was easier to believe that than to confront the terrifying alternative. The town went about its business, the disappearances stacking up like forgotten memories, all while Denke continued to smile, greet his neighbors, and offer his seemingly kind assistance. The truth began to unravel on a cold day in December 1924. A man named Vincent Olivier stumbled out of Denke's house, bleeding heavily from a severe head wound. He managed to alert the authorities, telling them a horrifying story. The friendly Papa Denke had attacked him with an axe. When the police arrived at Denke's home to arrest him, they were met with a calm, almost serene man who denied everything. He seemed so harmless that the police were initially skeptical. They took him into custody, but the true scale of his crimes was still hidden behind his front door. That night, while alone in his cell, Karl Denke took his own life, hanging himself with a handkerchief. He would never stand trial, never have to explain the horrors he had committed. But his death was not the end of the story. It was the key that unlocked his house of nightmares. With Denke dead, the police conducted a thorough search of his small apartment. What they found inside was a scene from the darkest corners of the human imagination. The air was thick with a putrid smell. They discovered large barrels filled with pickling brine, but it wasn't pork they contained. It was human flesh. Buckets were filled with human fat. Bones were scattered around the property. They even found articles of clothing belonging to numerous missing persons. It was a human slaughterhouse, meticulously organized. The police had stumbled upon one of history's most prolific and gruesome serial killers, operating right under the noses of an entire town for years, possibly decades. The most disturbing discovery of all was a ledger, a detailed notebook kept by Denke himself. In it, he had methodically recorded the names and details of his victims. The list was long, containing at least 31 names. But authorities believed the true number could be much higher, perhaps over 40. This ledger was not just a list of names. It was a chronicle of his atrocities. He documented their weights, dates of their murders, and other chilling details. This wasn't a man who killed in a fit of rage. This was a calculated, systematic predator who treated human beings as livestock. He had turned murder into a routine, a grisly business he managed with cold, terrifying efficiency. As investigators pieced together the evidence, the full, horrifying picture emerged. For years, Karl Denke had been luring wanderers, travelers, and the homeless into his home with promises of food and shelter. Once they were inside, he would murder them, often with a pickaxe or an axe. He would then dismember their bodies with a butcher's precision. The most shocking part of his crime was what he did with the remains. He rendered the fat to make soap, he cured the flesh in barrels, and he even ground the bones to sell as bone meal. And the pork he famously sold at the local market? Investigators came to the sickening conclusion that it was likely human flesh. His neighbors, the very people who called him Papa Denke, had been unwittingly buying and consuming the remains of his victims. The case of Karl Denke is a chilling reminder of how evil can hide in plain sight. He wasn't a shadowy monster lurking in the dark alleys. He was a smiling neighbor, a friendly face in the crowd. He used the trust and kindness of his community as a weapon, preying on the most vulnerable. His story forces us to question our own perceptions. How well do we really know the people around us? It demonstrates the terrifying capacity for deception that can exist within a seemingly ordinary person. The mask of normalcy can be the most effective camouflage for the most monstrous of intentions. The legacy of Karl Denke is one of absolute horror, a testament to the darkness that can fester beneath a veneer of civilization. The town of Münsterberg was forever changed, its inhabitants forced to confront the fact that they had lived alongside a monster, shared pleasantries with him, and even eaten at his hand. The breakfast table he kept set for his next guest became a symbol of his predatory nature, an invitation that was, in reality, a death sentence. His story serves as a permanent, grim warning that the greatest dangers sometimes come not from strangers, but from the people we think we know best. Thank you for joining us on this dark journey into the story of Karl Denke. It's a difficult tale to hear, but an important one to remember. If you found this exploration of one of history's most hidden monsters compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the shadows of the past. Stay safe and always be aware.